don't think that illegalizing meat is the solution here. Everyone's obviously got their own opinions.
It's the same thing with human rights, regardless of race or sex or whatever. All humans are conscious individuals, same as what I was saying about animals. They're sentient. They feel pain. They don't want to be stabbed or anything. So we have laws. This is discrimination. This is violence against innocent, childlike beings. I'm just deeply mad at myself for contributing to this for 26 years and laughing at vegans who tried to educate me. Consumer change itself will not do the trick. There has got to be a law, because so long as there is a demand, there will always be a supply. That person probably supports laws against kicking dogs. And so all we're saying is we want to apply that to all animals and extend it to stabbing as well. Call me a crazy vegan. I'm going to take away all your meat.
Hello.
What's up?
Hi. I would just like to preface, before I start this argument, I don't think anyone's really been answering this question properly. I personally am pro-vegan. However, I am answering here that meat should not be illegal.
Just for the sake of argument, or like are you playing devil's advocate, or you actually believe that, or?
So here, in my opinion, I think there are better alternatives rather than illegalizing meat. I think there are both safer and more cost-effective ways.
For the animals? Safer for the animals?
Well, I mean, in terms of your argument, you're arguing morals, and morals are, by subject, they are objective. And so it's kind of interesting to see that you're arguing about like fur on a thread about meat.
Well, okay. Well, just to be clear, let me clear that up real quick. Okay. I just want to clear that up. Sorry to interrupt. But yeah. So first of all, I'm not sure if morality is objective or subjective, but either way, I don't think it matters. So long as you have good.
My definition is it is objective.
Well, that's the subject of debate amongst professional philosophers for hundreds of years. Sure. So I'm not going to pretend like I can answer the question right now. But I think it's irrelevant, because so long as you have good reasons, then I don't think it matters. But in any case, sure. To your next point, why was I talking about fur when this is about meat? Because this is also about leather and wool and eggs and dairy. We're shutting it all down. When we say meat should be illegal, that's just a clickbaity way of saying any kind of animal torture and murder that's unnecessary and can be avoided should be illegal.
Right. And so this kind of brings me back to another point that you mentioned earlier, because, I mean, I know you said you were a human rights activist, and then it didn't really sound like it when you were talking about the guy's family, like on his farm. And so here it kind of comes into my next point, where like a lot of what you're talking about isn't very cost effective on our society in general.
Okay,
so
before you
I'm bringing in my point here, when it comes to illegalizing meat.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can. I would like to bring my point up if I can.
Yeah, it's just you made kind of a bit of an accusation that I just want to respond to real quick before you make those points. Is that okay?
Yeah,
okay.
Of course.
Okay, cool. So with that guy, like, I am a human rights activist. I like I said, I fight for a lot of different human rights causes on a daily basis. But and I started that conversation by telling this farmer that there are two different resources in two different continents that he could reach out to learn about how to transition to plant farming instead of animal farming. He didn't seem particularly interested in all that, and that kind of got on my nerves, because if he doesn't even want to learn about how he could potentially make the world a less violent place, then I find a problem with that. But so that aggravated me a bit and might have like led to me being a little less compassionate towards him. But again, the animals are the real victims. This guy not being able to make money off of slitting their throats is not the problem. He's not the victim. He's the oppressor, and he needs to stop.
Yeah, so can I then ask you what you think that the problem here is? Because I know you mentioned earlier that you would like to tax the rich to solve this issue.
Yeah, that's my go-to for like all social programs for humans and animals.
Yeah, did you know that the University of Columbia actually did a study recently, and they found that actually taxing all of these big companies in the meat industry in particular actually wouldn't solve anything at all? Have you heard about that?
No, you can post it in stage 1 text if you like.
Yeah, I most certainly can. And let me bring up another point here. Do you happen to know why that might be?
No, I'm not sure that what you're saying is true, but if it is, I'd like to learn about it. But I'm a communist, so I'm trying to abolish capitalism entirely and replace this whole system. If you'd like to learn about that, but we
Yeah.
do need to keep it as close to animal rights as
Okay.
possible. But go ahead.
So I most certainly will. And so, for the sake of the argument here, when it comes to meat being illegalized, I don't think that illegalizing meat is the solution here, because the reason why vegan alternatives are much less likely to be purchased and they're less widely available, which was also a research done by the University of Bath in the UK. So here from the University of Columbia, they recently did a study that found that the reason why these vegan alternatives are less widely available is because the U.S. government actually subsidizes $38 billion dollars a year in the meat industry, as compared to $17 million dollars in the fruit and vegetable industry.
Yep. Yeah, great.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So,
I'm glad you brought that up. It's a really good
Hey,
point. So
Chase.
so what we're
Hey,
aiming for,
Chase. Just to interrupt real quick,
yeah.
that amount of money if spent on soybeans could supply the calorie needs for 85% of the country. So that's how much money gets spent on meat. That's before anybody even buys anything.
correct.
Yeah, so what we're striving for is an end to the government subsidization of animal products. So for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about,
Right.
your tax dollars are going to the government, and the government gives a bunch of money to animal agriculture, like farmers who make meat and dairy and eggs, to lower the cost of those products so that they're actually
Mhm.
profitable. Because it's actually really unprofitable, not profitable, for to raise animals, because it takes like 16 pounds of plants to make 1 pound of beef, because you have to feed the cow for 18 months to get them up to slaughter weight, right? And then you kill them and get a tiny amount of meat. You get a tiny amount of meat compared to the piles and piles of grain and grass that was fed to them for 18 months. So yeah, it's really
Right.
resource intensive. So instead, what we're saying is the government should stop giving bailouts, tax bailouts, and government subsidies to animal agriculture, and instead give them to plant agriculture.
Correct. And so, in that point, I also want to state here that when it comes to that, I find it redundant that you are saying that we should be taxed and that our tax dollars are going to these subsidies, and therefore these rich individuals, these big companies that are producing like these meat factories, should then be taxed higher. Like that's
Okay.
just completely illogical
Okay.
by your state. So
Sure.
rather than holding these companies responsible, shouldn't we be holding our politicians and like our government responsible
And
instead, so
ourselves.
that they're not providing these subsidies? Correct.
Yes, yes, I agree. And if it were the case that no additional taxes would be needed, then there wouldn't be a need to tax the billionaires or the owners of these companies that hurt animals. But the thing is, if we tax them instead of us, our taxes go down. And I don't think we should be taxing poor people and working class people when these billionaires are sitting on giant piles of money and just trading yachts and going on vacations and living in mansions all the time. So like, why are you defending the billionaires and the animal slavers instead of the victims?
So the thing is that I'm not here defending any of the like the slavers that you're claiming, or any of these billionaires. I think while they do hold a degree of responsibility, in this case, when we're talking about whether or not veganism should result in the illegalization of animal products in general, I think that that's a false statement, because everyone's obviously got their own opinions. And not to mention, illegalizing it would result in obviously civil unrest, because that's how politics work in general, I would assume. No expert though. And so, obviously, when it comes to this, I think we should be holding ourselves responsible, and as well as like our politicians.
It's just like today, it's illegal to have dog fights, but people still have dog fights, right? But they
Right.
do so at great costs to themselves, right? So effectively making it illegal is essentially like putting a reverse subsidy on meat and making it even more expensive to get a hold of.
And so, by that logic,
So
if you're saying that, in a sense, by these people still performing these actions, even though they're illegal, so what would illegalizing animal products do, in a sense?
it would make them that much more expensive to produce.
Right, but then by reducing the subsidies that we place in these meat products, wouldn't that also increase the cost of these products?
Uh huh.
Thus, less people would buy into it, and more people would buy into the vegan alternatives. So, what's the difference here then between illegalizing and desubsidizing? Like, I apologize, but I don't see your argument.
So the difference would be that if you made it illegal, there would be actual consequences, like other legal consequences outside of it just costing more to get a hold of for people hurting animals.
Okay.
Much in the same way that we have the same rules for dogs or other pet animals.
It is your opinion, though, correct? That the way that animals are treated is cruel.
I guess so, yeah.
So we should create a law because you believe animals are being treated unfairly.
Yeah, I think creating a law to keep people from hurting others is a good idea.
Interesting. Okay.
Because I think that the pleasure people get from hurting other people isn't worth that other individual's life.
And of course, and obviously, I've trust me, I've watched the documentaries, and that's why I am pro-vegan. However, we can't make laws. In reality, we can't make laws based on opinion. Obviously, there are civil rights activists, there are human rights movements, but
Right.
Like hopefully we would make laws
So-
based on facts, but in theory, facts just form opinions, and then that's what we make laws out
I
of.
want to make a distinction, like the thing about fact versus opinion. That's not what's happening here. Okay, like look,
Right.
we are looking at facts using science and evidence to understand that animals are conscious sentient beings who have a brain and a nervous system and therefore can feel pain and pleasure and fear and joy, and they have a desire to stay alive. They have friends and families that they care about. We're using science to determine that. Those are facts. Now, whether you're going to give a shit is about an opinion.
Right.
So I happen to care about that, and a lot of people actually care about that. Even though they eat animals, they care about the fact that animals are able to suffer and experience their lives and have a preference to live, and they want to respect that. And so though it's the same thing with human rights. We use science to realize that regardless of race or sex or whatever, all humans are conscious individuals, same as what I was saying about animals. They're sentient. They feel pain. They don't want to be stabbed or anything. So we have laws. We have the opinion based on that science. We say, well, the science shows that humans feel pain. They don't want to feel pain. I know I don't want to feel pain. And so we're going to have laws. We're going to have this opinion that because they can feel pain, it's bad for them to feel pain. We shouldn't cause it or allow it to come to them for needless reasons. And so we institute laws to protect them.
Those are great points, but what I'm trying to get at here is I feel like as a pro-vegan, I think you guys are arguing for the wrong things. So you're arguing based on immorality, which by definition is objective. And so when there are more benefits to being vegan than just what you're explaining,
Sure.
I feel like there could be better arguments to be made on your end.
Okay, you may have a point there, but the thing is like
Yeah.
there's a lot of different forms of activism and different ways to go about this. So there's a lot of people already who are like going at this from the health angle, saying, look, animal products are the only food that have cholesterol in them. So vegans have a zero cholesterol intake, which means that vegans have a much lower risk of heart disease than meat eaters or even vegetarians who consume animal products, because cholesterol increases your risk of heart disease by atherosclerosis, that clogs up your arteries, and cancer risk from eating animal products. And we're giving this to children. Okay, so yeah, those are very serious issues, but also then the environment. Like I talk all day about how National Geographic reported that vegan diet saves 600 gallons of water per day per person because we have to water all the crops that are fed to 70 billion animals every year. So those are good things, and those will be in some situations more effective at a certain individual than talking about animal rights. But we are animal rights activists, right? So we're doing this, we're trying to wake people up to the reality of speciesism and that slaughter is animal cruelty, right? That it is cruel to cut their heads off. Even if you do it quick and painless, killing them is animal cruelty. And so if you're against animal cruelty, you got to go vegan and you got to stand up for them. And so even if that doesn't resonate with somebody right away, they need to start thinking about that right now. Okay, and there are a lot of people who this does resonate with, and unfortunately, a lot of the people who go the quote unquote vegan, or what they're doing is they're just going plant based for their health or for the environment. Those people will cheat on their diet. They will eat animal products 1 day a week or whatever. They will go back to eating meat entirely because there was never any ethical component that held them in. Right? So when you go vegan for the animals, it's because you realize that this is a grave injustice. This is discrimination. This is violence against innocent childlike beings, and we have got no fucking right to do this to them, and we ought to be ashamed of ourselves. And I'm just deeply mad at myself for contributing to this for 26 years and laughing at vegans who tried to educate me. And I wish they had done a more forceful job of making me realize the severity of this situation.
Yeah, and I won't get too much into this because I'm not well versed on this topic, but I can assume there are more ways, like more humane ways to cultivate meat. Is there not?
What do you mean?
Rather than
We can do
I
like
mean,
lab.
not that are currently available.
You could do
I think.
lab grown
right,
meat. Yeah, lab grown meat would be less objectionable. There might still be some problems with it. Those might be able to be ironed out
right,
though. If you can iron out the ethical problems with lab grown meat and make it easily accessible and affordable, which will happen, I think, as it
right.
grows in the marketplace, just like with vegan
Mhm.
plant based meats. All right, this stuff will just keep growing and overtake the market.
Okay, so now I would like to thank you for proving my point that by investing more money in these vegan options and these vegan alternatives, we can then thus end animal cruelty and therefore not have to illegalize meat.
No,
Thank
I
you.
think I think you misunderstood what I was saying. I hope you
Yeah,
don't.
that's
I hope you don't
that's
hang
not
up.
the
Yeah,
entailment
I'm
of
glad
what
you.
we
I'm glad.
asserted.
I'm glad you didn't hang
Okay.
up thinking that you
Yeah,
won, because
sure.
that's not what's going on here. So what's going to
Right, but
happen?
you just
No,
kind
no.
of
Let me.
proved
Let
my
me.
point
Well, hold on. Hold on. Let me
by
clarify.
saying that
Well, hold
there
on.
are
Hold on.
better
Hold on. No,
alternatives
I
to
heard
I'm
you.
meat,
sorry,
Hey,
right?
Riley.
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 We didn't.
Yeah, we
So,
heard you. I
I
heard you.
mean, you
I
just
no. Listen,
agreed that there could be
Riley.
better
Riley. I'm
alternatives,
gonna
right?
move you off the stage if you don't just chill out and let me
Okay,
respond to your critique. Cool.
sure.
Okay, thank you. And then you can talk again. It's fine. We're just having a conversation. This is going to be a gradual progression over the next like 10, 20, 30 years. We're going to
Okay.
see is a gradual progression of more people going vegan, more people going plant-based for their health and for the environment, which helps the animal rights movement indirectly because they're buying more plant-based products, less meat, dairy, and eggs. So there's going to be all of these people for different reasons boycotting animal products. And this is just going to keep growing as activists continue our goal. The product lines will change. More vegan products will be made, less animal products will be made, and then there will start becoming laws in certain progressive cities. So it's not going to start like a worldwide ban on meat, right? So it's going to be like small progressive cities are going to start banning these products and shutting down slaughterhouses and enacting an animal bill of rights, okay, that protects them from needless killing. And then other cities will adopt that, and then a whole state, and then other states will do that, and then we'll have a federal law. So that's exactly how it works with like gay marriage, for example. Okay, but that's going to be aided by the fact that there is this consumer change, but the consumer change itself will not do the trick. There has got to be a law because so long as there is a demand, there will always be a supply, and I don't think that we can get the whole population or even 3/4 of the population to like willingly go vegan. And so we simply have to get enough people to join our side to then support the legislation that we introduce, and then we're going to pass the law. And anybody who's not on our side by that point will be left in the dustbin of history, kicking and screaming, fighting for the right to oppress the weak, and it just won't happen anymore.
Okay, so you kind of went back on yourself there. What we were talking about before you had brought all this up was a more humane alternative to meat products. Like to rather than for meat, I apologize, for meat products, there could be a more humane alternative that we just haven't discovered yet. Was your words, if I remember correctly,
No, I think those were
right?
your. I think those were your words. And for the record, like when the stage title says meat should be illegal, when we say meat, we do mean dairy and eggs and leather and fur as well. But we also mean like
Sure.
by that we simply mean slaughter. Okay, so if you can make
Yeah,
meat, if you can make meat without slaughter, without any animal cruelty involved, then it's not really an issue.
yeah. So I apologize. It wasn't me though, because I remember you had brought up the point of like lab grown meat and things like that. So synthetic alternatives to these meat products, and so there could be a more humane way in the future if we just pointed some of this money into those alternatives rather than making like animal products illegal, right? So rather than trying to end like animal cruelty by making them illegal, wouldn't it be better to invest this
Okay.
money into the better alternative,
I think that's a really good question. So,
right?
yeah, it's a good question, and you might even be right, but I'm not sure, and so I'm kind of agnostic
Okay.
on that. I think we should do both. We like I was saying earlier. There's multiple forms
Mhm.
of
So
activism.
you think
There's
that
hold
we can
just
do
one
both?
just 1 second. There's many different forms of activism, like polite one-on-one conversations we're doing right now, which is just educational outreach. There's big protests and rescues. There's lobbying politicians and enacting new laws. There's cooking shows to teach people how that vegan food actually tastes good and how to make it. There's all kinds of stuff, right? And all of them are helpful, and some people are super good at certain things, and so let them do those and I'll do what I'm good at, which is multiple things for sure. But like so I'm just saying we should come at it from all angles. We should aim at the companies, aim at the consumers, aim at the politicians, aim for if it happens that lab grown meat and vegan, like plant based meats, take over the market to the point where there's no need to outlaw meat, then so be it. But we still need an animal bill of rights. We still need to make the needless killing of any animal illegal. That's what we mean by meat in this context. The needless killing of any animal should be illegal.
Right. But as to my point, as I was getting at before, I mean, there are, or there could possibly be more humane ways to cultivate these animal products.
Well, not
Um,
not if it involves slaughter. That's all I'm saying. If you're talking about lab grown meat, that basically isn't what we're talking about. That's like not meat, because what we mean by meat here is slaughter and animal cruelty, and lab grown meat wouldn't involve those. So remove lab grown meat, and if you're talking about trying to find humane ways or less violent ways of getting animals' heads cut off, you're going to run into a brick wall talking to me.
right. And this is where I think that clickbait title that what you mentioned was earlier was clickbait. I think this is where you're kind of like trapping people like myself. Because I've come here with facts and then you're just giving me opinions.
What? Wait a minute.
And
Wait a
so
minute. Wait a minute.
I'm not
Back that
biased.
up. Like I've given you facts. I've given you statistics about the environment, about health. I can
Sure.
about animal cruelty and sentience. So what do you mean?
Right. So, in this context, we were talking about what it meant in terms of meat being illegalized, or just animal products in general. And then you kind of turn this back into, well, you think it should be illegal because animal cruelty is bad, is basically what you've been telling me. So, I thank you, but I've about had enough.
Okay, well, so the last thing I'll say is that we already have laws against kicking dogs, and that person probably supports laws against kicking dogs. And so all we're saying is we want to apply that to all animals and extend it to stabbing as well.